recording this to archive on our website if you want to reference this conversation. My name is Savannah Lane. I'm the Executive Director of the Turkish Heritage Organization. And before I begin, I just want to let our audience members, our new guests, know a little bit about our organization. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization here in Washington, D.C., and we focus on strengthening the U.S.-Turkey relationship through analysis and examination, through research and webinars just like this, and hosting conversations. So it's critical to continue the dialogue for U.S.-Turkey relations. Today, we're very excited to host a conversation on Turkey's national security strategy and the latest security developments in the region with Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar. So First Minister, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I want to also let you all know just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. We will hopefully have enough time to dive into a lot of our conversations and topics of questions today from our moderators. And I want to first introduce our moderators and then introduce our guest, the minister, and turn it over to the minister for opening remarks. So first, I want to just introduce you to your moderators today. We have Ali Çınar, who is the president of the Turkish Heritage Organization. His background, he has testified at the U.S. Congress before. He's appeared on international media numerous times. Of course, there are many more distinctions, but I did want to note that he was awarded the Ellis Island Medal of Honor in 2019 and was the youngest Turkish American to ever receive this distinction in 30 years. So Ali Çınar will be moderating alongside Ayça Aydoğdu, who is currently a news presenter at TRT World based in London. She's previously worked as a reporter and producer of other foreign news programs, born in Germany and lived in the UK, Germany, Spain, and Turkey. So we're very excited to have a very international perspective from Ayça as well. And finally, of course, we have the Minister Akar. We're so excited to host you today. He's the current Turkish Minister of Defense and former 4-star Turkish Armed Forces General who has served as the 29th Chief of Turkish General Staff. Minister Akar also served as a brigade commander in various NATO engagements, including the International Security Assistance Force against Taliban insurgency, Operation Deliberate Force during the Bosnian War, the Kosovo Force during the Kosovo War, as well as overseeing much of the Turkish involvement in the Syrian civil war. And in 2018, Minister Akar was appointed by Turkey's President Erdogan as the Minister for National Defense. And this was the first time in Turkey's history that a civilian government appointed an active duty military officer to this position. So thank you to all of our panelists for joining us and hosting Minister Akar. A quick note to all of our audience members that hopefully we will have time for audience participation, but we are going to be very close on our time, so we're going to be monitoring that closely with our moderators. And we have audience members from the US, from different government positions, from media, as well as international audience members as well. So we want to thank you for joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Minister Akar for his opening remarks. And then afterwards, we will dive right into our moderated panel. So thank you so much for joining us. And Minister Akar, please, for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Director Lane. Good morning to all our friends and colleagues in the US and around the world. I'd like to thank Mr. Çınar, the Turkish Heritage Organization, for the invitation. It is my pleasure to address you all in this special event. At the outset, I'd like to take this opportunity to extend my condolences and heartfelt sympathies for all the losses due to COVID-19 in the US and elsewhere. Today, I will be sharing some of my views on Turkey's security strategy and the latest developments in the region. In the first 2 decades of the 21st century, we have entered a more unstable and unpredictable security environment. Conventional threats are accompanied by terrorism, extremist ideologies, failed states, proxy wars, frozen conflicts, mass migration, and of course, the pandemic finally. In order to confront and defuse these new challenges, we have no choice but to adapt our outlook, structures, forces, and processes in all domains, build up our resilience, stay on top of technology, and look for innovative ways to deal with these challenges. We are particularly concerned that the terrorist organizations are trying to take advantage of this disorderly state of affairs. In such an environment, we are fighting several terrorist organizations simultaneously inside and outside our borders, including the PKK, PYD, YPG, as well as the Fethullahist terrorist organization and Daesh, also known as ISIS. I must underline the fact that the PKK, PYD, YPG are all the same terrorist organizations commanded by the same terrorist group. Among the NATO allies, Turkey is one of the countries that has unfortunately suffered the most from terrorism and has long been fighting it. The PKK, a terrorist organization, has killed more than 40,000 of our citizens. The PKK has been maintaining an active presence in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria, as well as in some European countries. They are misleading the international community by using different names. The PKK, KCK, PYD, YPG, PJAK, YBS, and the YJS are all terrorist organizations with the same ideology. The Syrian crisis gave the PKK the opportunity to promote the YPG, its branch in Syria. As a matter of fact, in 2016, we conducted Operation Euphrates Shield against Daesh and neutralized more than 3,000 radical Daesh terrorists. 3,000 radical Daesh terrorists. Actually, we had wanted to conduct this operation against Daesh together with our US American partners. However, this unfortunately did not happen. Exploiting the power vacuum, the PKK-YPG is using every opportunity to change the demographic structure of northern Syria as reported by Human Rights Watch. The weapons, ammunition, and the equipment given to PKK-YPG by the US and other coalition forces supposedly to fight against Daesh and end up being used against our forces. We have long been warning all our friends against the dangerous consequences of arming and politically supporting the PKK-YPG terrorist organization in Syria. The Syrian crisis is the bloodiest conflict in the region since World War II. As Turkey, we have stood with the Syrian people since the beginning of the conflict. We have embraced millions of Syrian and Iraqi refugees, regardless of their ethnic identity or faith, including Yazidis, Arabs, Christians, Assyrians, and the many other minorities. We have prevented humanitarian tragedies and separatist aims by intervening when needed. I should underline that we certainly have no interest in occupying Syria or changing its demographics, as has sometimes been claimed. Therefore, accusations of invasion, occupation, or ethnic cleansing are simply wrong, misleading, and totally baseless. At this point, let me stress that we fully respect the territorial integrity of our neighbors, all our neighbors. From the very beginning, preserving the political unity and territorial integrity of Syria has been a priority for us. We have no problem with neither Kurdish people nor any other ethnicity. We have been living together with Kurds for centuries, and we will continue to do so. Just as Daesh cannot represent Muslims, the PKK-YPG are not representatives of the Kurds. The Kurds are our brothers and sisters. Our only struggle is with the PKK-YPG and the other terrorist organizations. In order to protect civilians, lay the ground for the safe and voluntary return of Syrian refugees, ensure the safety of our borders, and eliminate the threat of terrorism, Turkey has conducted 4 major operations in Syria, as you recall. These operations were conducted with utmost care. We never targeted or harmed any civilians, historical or religious places or the environment. Nevertheless, a disinformation campaign was conducted against us on social media. However, upon examination, it turned out that the photos and video footage that were circulated were either fake or manipulated or taken from different incidents in other countries, in other places. Turning to Libya, our maritime neighbor across the Mediterranean. Turkey and Libya, I'd like to remind you, share 500 years of common culture and history. Our primary objective is an independent and sovereign Libya, led by Libyans and embracing all Libyans with its territorial integrity and national unity intact. We have been providing trade, assist, and advice support based upon an agreement with the UN-recognized legitimate government of Libya, the government of national accord, as well as its invitation. We have also been providing humanitarian assistance to Libya, including running a hospital, as well as clearing mines and IEDs. We are deeply concerned by the mass graves recently uncovered in the areas cleared from the Haftar's forces. As you know, the Libyan government repeatedly agreed to the conclusions of the Berlin Conference, as well as other peace efforts, while Haftar just walked away each time. As we all agree, there is no military solution to this issue other than a political process for which the International Berlin Conference is the right platform. In short, we should not repeat in Libya the same mistakes made since 2011 in Syria. Another important issue on the agenda, as you know, is the East Mediterranean. Turkey, as a country with the longest continental coastline in the Eastern Mediterranean, has sovereign rights in its maritime areas. By the way, Turkey's coastline in the East Mediterranean is almost 1,800 kilometers long. Turkey's hydrocarbon-related activities in East Mediterranean are completely based on her legitimate rights and international law. Energy projects in the East Mediterranean that exclude Turkey from the energy equation are doomed to fail. We strongly believe peace and stability in the region can be achieved through dialogue. Taking this opportunity, let me also briefly mention the Hagia Sophia Mosque, which has been in the news lately, as it is a property of Turkey. Its change of status is a matter that falls within Turkish sovereign rights. We are naturally deeply aware of its outstanding cultural and historical value all the way. In its new status, Hagia Sophia Mosque will still be open to visitors from all faiths and religions. Rest assured that everybody will be able to visit this magnificent place. Now, with a few words, I'd like to talk about on the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict. As you may know, Armenia recently carried out an attack in the Tovuz region of Azerbaijan, away from the Nagorno-Karabakh region on the 12th of July. This is important. Not in around the Nagorno-Karabakh, but in out of the Nagorno-Karabakh. 20% of Azerbaijan territory, including Nagorno-Karabakh, has been occupied by Armenia for almost 30 years. Turkey strongly condemns Armenian aggression. Turkey supports the resolution of this dispute through peaceful means within the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. The United States and the international community should urge Armenia to refrain from such attacks and adopt a constructive approach to the resolution of this issue. In addition, I'd like to mention the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic is testing the resilience of our societies and economies. Countries are progressively easing the measures put in place in order to contain the pandemic. At the same time, we must remain vigilant against a potential second wave. For our part, the measures we put in place very early on ensured the readiness and effectiveness of our armed forces for both national and NATO missions. With the measures was implemented, we ensured that there is no disruption to our operations and missions. The strict and immediate measures we adopted placed our armed forces to one of the lowest rate of infections among the other armed forces, fortunately. At the same time, Turkey has steadily increased its domestic production of medical equipment and supplies. We, as the Ministry of National Defense, contributed to this effort by gearing all our facilities to produce supplies for our nation as well as friendly and allied countries. In addition, Turkey has so far provided assistance to 141 countries. This pandemic may affect the dynamics of local security in the days to come. In this new security environment, we need to successfully and creatively deal with rapid changes and uncertainty. As Turkey, we will continue to fulfill all our responsibilities and to contribute to peace, cooperation, good neighborly relations, and security in our region and the world. There should be no doubt on this. There should be no doubt on this. In doing so, we wish to work with our allies and friends, beginning with the United States. For this purpose, we are contributing to operations conducted by NATO and the other international organizations, such as the United Nations, European Union, and the OSCE. Turkish troops are deployed in many countries, such as Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kosovo, Lebanon, and at sea for humanitarian purposes, and are working with the United States forces in all these theaters. All our operations are in accordance with bilateral agreements, international law, and the contemporary values. This is important. The safety of our people and protecting our borders is essential for us. We have the 83 million people living in Turkey, and we need to provide the safety and security of the area for all of them to live. We are committed and determined to defend our rights and are capable of doing so. Despite all the challenges, we are determined to contribute to regional and global stability. In this respect, we attach great importance to our cooperation with the United States, both bilaterally and within NATO. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Minister, for your opening remarks. We have some questions related many issues. And as Savannah said at the beginning, our mission as an organization to improve the Turkey-US relationship and make sure that two NATO allies work together. So since Turkey-US has some disagreements on Syria, the first question will be about Syria. As the world continues its fight against COVID-19, the suffering in Syria and some of the bloodiest years in the Middle East doesn't reduce. We are facing the fact that 500,000 people have been killed by Assad regime and 6.5 million Syrians have been forced into displacement from the conflict. Neither the United Nations nor the European Union has been able to take the desired step for the Syrian crisis. What is the overall future Turkish counterterrorism strategy in Syria for, and how can Turkey and Russia ensure that the ceasefire remains in place?
Thank you, President Çınar. Let me summarize to answer your question. It's a big issue, there are lots of issues to mention, but very shortly. One of the consequences of the Arab Spring was to trigger a civil war in Syria, as we all know. Despite our friendly advice to pursue democratic reforms, the Syrian regime chose to use extreme violence against its own citizens who were demanding their democratic rights. Since 2011, we have been warning out friends and allies that Syria would become a quagmire. Again and again, repeated this the definition, this the picture we try to put on in front of our friends. Unfortunately, the international community has remained largely indifferent to the Syrian crisis at the beginning. For the last 9 years, we have been hosting more than 3.7 million Syrians, which is the largest number of the refugees in any single country in the world. There are also more than 3 million Syrians that we are taking care of within Syria's borders. So far, we have spent about $40 billion for the displaced Syrians, and we do not have the capacity to host any more refugees in my country. This internal conflict caused a power vacuum, especially in the northern and eastern parts of Syria. Daesh, also known as ISIS, and the PKK-YPG terrorist organizations exploited this power vacuum. First Daesh, then YPG, which is the Syrian branch of the PKK, as I said before, tried to establish a terror corridor in northern Syria. We declared over and over that we will not let a terror corridor be established to the south of our borders, in the south of Turkey. This is the main issue. Therefore, we were compelled to conduct 3 operations in northern Syria. In all of these operations, our objectives were the same. Number 1, preventing the establishment of a terror corridor and securing our borders and protecting our citizens, and stopping irregular migration, and finally establishing a safe zone for the displaced Syrians. Also, from the beginning, we attached particular importance to cooperating with the United States on Syria. In fact, we repeatedly discussed this issue with the United States over the years. However, many of these cooperative efforts were, unfortunately, inconclusive. In order to stop the ongoing bloodshed in Syria, we have also worked with Russia. This was an initiative to find a political solution to the Syrian crisis under the mandate of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2254. Subsequently, 4 de-escalation zones were established for displaced Syrians, namely East Ghouta, Dera Kuneitra, Humus, and Idlib. However, the regime attacked and captured 3 of these 4 zones. The Idlib de-escalation zone has now become the last safe haven for displaced people and opposition groups. Still, the Syrian regime violated all the agreements, categorized almost 4 million civilians in Idlib as terrorists, and began attacking Idlib. The regime intentionally targeted urban areas by dropping about 15,000 bombs from aircraft and helicopters on civilians, forcing them to flee from their homes, their territory. Indiscriminate bombing by regime has caused the further radicalization and the mass migration of civilians. Almost all of the displaced people in Idlib moved toward our border, to Turkey. As we deployed our troops to the contact line, the regime forces, supported by their backers, began attacking our units. We exercised our rights of self-defense and responded to the attacks of the regime by starting Operation Cyprian Shield. Finally, after inflicting serious damage and stopping the Syrian regime forces, Turkey and Russia agreed on a ceasefire on the 5th of March. We consider this an opportunity for a lasting ceasefire in the region in order to stabilize the region. This is essential in order to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground, prevent a refugee flow towards Turkey and Europe, and revitalize the ongoing political process. As a result, we ensured that since March, 300,000 people, almost 300,000 people, could return safely, voluntarily, and in a dignified manner to their lands and homes in Idlib. Turkey will continue to work to help find a lasting political solution to the Syrian conflict. ultimately, we wish to see a stable, democratic, and politically united Syria as our neighbor. At the same time, we will continue to respond in the self-defense against any attack by the regime or any terrorist organization, including PKK and YPG. Let me underline here that our fight is only with the terrorists and not with any ethnic group. Sometimes, there's misunderstanding, sometimes they're misleading, sometimes, unfortunately, there are some manipulations in our intention. We are just fighting against the terrorists and terrorist organizations. In short, just as Daesh does not represent Muslims, the PKK, YPG do not represent the Kurds. The crucial distinction is unfortunately sometimes forgotten in media and by some politicians. At a time when countries 1,000 kilometers away claim to have security concerns in Syria, I believe Turkey, we, as a neighbor, has every right to be involved in the situation which is on our doorstep. I can say that our primary objective is an independent and sovereign state. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. There, I'll jump in with the second question so we can use the time wisely. The second topic is, of course, Libya at the moment. Libya has proven to be a highly contested and politically divided region of the world. And after achieving a decisive military success and coordination on the major areas, will Turkey and the Libyan government be able to transform the military victory into a political success, bearing in mind with the latest players, including NATO allies, on opposing ends of the spectrum, and the role of Russia and others in the region? What is Turkey's goal in this conflict?
Okay, thank you. I can say that our primary objective, first of all, is an independent and sovereign Libya, led by the Libyans and embracing all Libyans, with its territorial integrity and national unity intact. We support the Government of National Accord, as I said before, as the UN recognized legitimate government of Libya. This is very important. Everybody needs to understand this, what we are doing over there. After Haftar forces intensified their attacks on Tripoli in 2019, seeking support, the GNA sent letters. GNA, UN Security Council, recognized this organization, this structure. The GNA sent letters to 5 countries, namely the United States, United Kingdom, Italy, Algeria, and Turkey, as well as NATO. President Erdogan, Turkey, was the only leader, only country who responded positively. This is the bottom line. Based on this invitation and the bilateral agreement with the legitimate government of Libya, we have been providing trained assist and advice support to GNA forces. This has helped to create a balance on the ground while preventing a humanitarian tragedy around Tripoli. In January, Turkey's efforts in Istanbul and Moscow for a ceasefire in Libya paved the way for the Berlin Conference and pushed forward the stalled UN political process. Thanks to our support, the GNA showed its goodwill and agreed to the conclusions of the Berlin Conference, as well as other peace efforts, while Haftar just walked away. This is the core issue to better understand the situation in Libya. The ruthless campaign of aggression that Haftar has been waging has had devastating consequences for Libya. Haftar's forces, supported by mercenary groups, have indiscriminately shelled hospitals, ports, airports, schools, embassies, residential areas, and the medical supply depots. Haftar's forces cut off the water, electricity of Tripoli, even while civilians were suffering from COVID-19. By the end of March, the GNA was compelled to start a counter-offensive operation against Haftar. It is ironic to see calls for a ceasefire just when Haftar began losing on the field. As Haftar's forces started withdrawing from Tripoli, they left behind mines and explosives. We are running a hospital as well as clearing mines and IEDs led by Haftar as humanitarian assistance. Our counter-IED team has neutralized many explosive devices, some of which were concealed inside toys that would kill children. This is reality, unfortunately. Just a few days ago, 2 children were killed by one of these explosive devices. It's pity. There are still hundreds of the mines and improvised explosives out there. In the areas cleared from Haftar's forces, 19 mass graves have been found so far, and remains of more than 200 people have been uncovered. Given his record of war crimes, Haftar should have no place in Libya's future. As we all agree, there is no military solution to this issue other than through a political process, for which the Berlin Conference is the right platform. We believe this. For our part, our main goal is to reach a solution through a political process under the auspices of the United Nations. For a credible political process, a sustainable ceasefire is essential. Some countries, such as Abu Dhabi, Egypt, Russia, France, and Saudi Arabia, claim to support a political solution, but unfortunately continue to provide Haftar with arms and military equipment. This foreign support to Haftar is the biggest obstacle to peace and the stability in Libya. Please note this. In order to ensure stability and calm in Libya, it is essential for all foreign assistance to Haftar to cease immediately. The presence of Haftar's forces and foreign mercenaries constitute a major threat for the security and the stability of Tripoli and Misrata. To ensure a sustainable ceasefire, the Libyan government asserts that Haftar forces should withdraw from Sirte and Jufra. We fully support the government's call for returning to the lines of contact before the 2015 Sweared Agreement for a sustainable ceasefire. We are working with the United States and Russia, along with other actors, which are willing to contribute to a lasting political solution in Libya. Turkey, we will continue to support the legitimate government of Libya, the GNA. Thank you.
Minister, thank you. I would like to now ask a question about the Turkey-US relationship. As of recent, relationship between US and Turkey have been tested, stemming from FETÖ-related issues, YPG, PKK, and to Turkey's acquisition of S-400. This pandemic has shown us that allies need each other, and despite differences, mutual assistance is provided indeed, as we have seen. How do you view the differences between the US and Turkey, and do you predict that those issues will be resolved?
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me try to answer your difficult question. First of all, historically, when you look at the issue from a historical point of view, there has been and continues to be a strong, comprehensive, and a strategic alliance between Turkey and the United States based on common values and interests. This is very important. Although we have had ups and downs in our relations and occasionally sharp differences of opinion, let's not forget that we have overcome many challenges in the past. From Korea to Afghanistan, the Balkans, and in other geographies worldwide, we have worked closely together for decades and are continuing to do so today. Turkey's resolute and principled stance on many regional issues is deterring our common adversaries and terrorist groups, such as Daesh and the PKK, while contributing to our common defense and security. Likewise, the global turmoil caused by the COVID-19 pandemic showed once again that the Turkish-US alliance and partnership are more vital than ever. As an example, Turkey sent 2 military cargo planes loaded with medical supplies and personal protective equipment to the US. This was a true manifestation of allied solidarity. It was a great symbolic value. We have acted fast and in very concrete terms to assist our allies. President Erdogan, our President Erdogan, and President Trump have been in close contact on all these bilateral and international issues. However, it is no secret that certain issues have cast a shadow on the Turkish-American partnership. For example, the United States inaction on FETÖ, continued support to the PKK Syrian offshoot PYD-YPG, and the certain legislative processes in the Congress aiming to sanction Turkey due to our procurement of the S-400 missile defense system are such issues. Furthermore, last year, Congress passed unacceptable resolutions on the events of 1950. This issue is sadly being handled on the basis of incorrect information and a reluctance to acknowledge all the evidence. At this point, I would like to bring to your attention the report of the General Harbord. In 1919, General Harbord conducted a fact-finding mission from Istanbul to Yerevan regarding the events of 1915. I should like to stress that the General Harbord's report does not support the Armenian claims. The report is available not in Turkey, but at the US National Archives and Records Administration in Washington, DC, not in Ankara, in Washington. By the way, this same reluctance to accept facts was evident in the recent incident involving French and Turkish naval vessels in the Mediterranean. The facts in that incident are clear and undeniable and confirm Turkey's position. In this case, too, intellectual honesty would require an acknowledgement of the facts. All these issues have all caused a huge disappointment for our nation. We believe that the language of threats and sanctions is not an appropriate means to address differences among allies. However, we are fully confident that Turkey and the United States will eventually move forward a more positive course, as we have done so many times in the past. To this end, keeping dialogue channels open at every level is of utmost importance to overcome these challenges. We also have a positive agenda to work on. For example, there are new opportunities for cooperation in the post-COVID world, which help us move closer to our joint $100 billion US dollar trade target set by 2 presidents. Also, we hope Congress will also act in a way that will strengthen our strategic partnership instead of resorting to the threat of sanctions as a policy toward an ally. Sometimes perceptions can overshadow reality itself, as you know very well. As they say, geography is destiny. In our case, this region's destiny depends on Turkey's as well. I believe the United States should recognize this and give priority to Turkey as her main regional partner in dealing with global issues. Please keep this in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Akar. So I'll just jump in there with the fact that 2 weeks ago, Turkey marked the coup attempt anniversary of 4 years. And how has it changed Turkey in its experience, especially when it comes to domestic and foreign affairs?
Thank you, Director Lane. Let me first underline that the fight against FETÖ is one of the most important issues for Turkey, all over Turkey. All of the area people 100% against this organization. We recently commemorated the 4th anniversary of the deplorable failed coup attempt of the July 15. We are still working to overcome the harmful effects of this terrorist organization's attack on our country and democracy. To fully understand the security threat posed by this terrorist organization, one needs to simply look into their actions. FETÖ's disciples within the armed forces ruthlessly used lethal force against innocent civilians, killing 251 and wounding 2,193. Among other heinous acts, they attempted to assassinate the elected president, our president, and bombed our parliament. Unfortunately, the so-called leader of this organization continues to live in Pennsylvania as if nothing has happened. FETÖ still continues its activities with its network of schools, media, entities, and associations around the world. July 15th was a test of strength and resilience for the Turkish democracy and state. The Turkish government rightfully took the necessary legitimate and proportionate measures to suppress and defeat this threat and bring its perpetrators to justice. I should emphasize that our Ministry of National Defense and the armed forces have become stronger with the measures taken since the coup attempt. In other words, as our institutions are cleansed of FETÖ members, we are becoming more effective. We are also committed to strengthening our democratic credentials because we know that this is the only way to counter terrorism in all forms and manifestations. We are determined to fight such enemies of democracy through democratic means. We expect and urge the United States authorities to take concrete actions against FETÖ and respond to our pending extradition requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now I'll move to the NATO because there were a lot of questions on Turkey's NATO membership. Turkey, as a NATO member, is a part of the North Atlantic Alliance defense architecture. Where do you see Turkey's position among major power centers such as United States, China, Russia, and the European Union today and in the future? And does this crisis affect Turkey's perspective on the importance of the NATO?
Thank you, President. First of all, I'd like to remind you some issues. As a NATO ally for almost 7 decades, Turkey has made essential contributions to Euro-Atlantic security. NATO is central to Turkey's security, and Turkey is central to NATO. This is a very important issue in our understanding. Turkey is among the top 5 troop contributors to NATO's missions and operations, and among the top 8 contributors to NATO in financial terms. Our commitments to NATO is solid, and we will continue to shoulder our fair share of the burden. We have fulfilled all our responsibilities and will continue to do so in the future as well. NATO has evolved successfully according to the changing security environment and will continue to do so in the future. Nevertheless, a new multipolar era is emerging. And now actors such as China have become more prominent both economically and militarily. And Russia is also an important international actor. But at the same time, we should not forget that the world is bigger than 5, as President Erdogan says. Membership in the EU remains our strategic objective. We are a main candidate country and have extensive economic relations with the EU, European Union, including a customs union. Turkey's EU relations are deep-rooted, multidimensional, and crucial, not only for Turkey and the EU, but also for the wider region. Keeping the accession perspective open for Turkey will be the best investment for the European Union. This is our comment. As a NATO member, we have been actively contributing to all efforts to address the multiple challenges that affect Europe and the transatlantic region. As in the past, we will continue to contribute to international peace and security in the future. We pursue a multidimensional foreign and defense policy with strong ties to our friends, allies, and partners. Our efforts to fight against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, our engagement with international actors, our mediatory approach, not military, mediatory approach, and influential role in trying to resolve conflicts are the manifestations of our desire for a better world. The COVID-19 global crisis has changed the meaning of the security. During the crisis, the international community recognized once again the importance of multilateral cooperation. No nation or organization is able to face this crisis alone. Therefore, we are working with all relevant actors to bolster the international response to the pandemic. This is not only a matter of principle, but also an inherent aspect of Turkey's proactive policies towards promoting peace, stability, and sustainable development across the globe.
Minister Akar, I believe this is the last question that I will be posing to you, as we are using up the time. But as you have mentioned, COVID-19 has affected all areas and globally. And so maybe the last question, especially on the future of defense and security. So what opportunities and risks has COVID-19 posed for Turkey's defense industry? And what is the Turkish defense industry's projection in a post-COVID-19 era?
Thank you, Director Lane. In Turkey, we attach great importance to the domestic design, development, and the manufacture of defense systems. We are focusing on being self-sufficient, and we have achieved very good results so far, fortunately, between the great effort of the people, our people at every level. We wish to continue our constructive and mutually beneficial engagement with the United States defense industry. The growth of the domestic Turkish defense sector should not be seen as a limiting factor for Turkish-US defense cooperation. In fact, I believe that by enabling Turkey to contribute as a more developed partner, the spectrum of possible areas of Turkish-US cooperation will expand in the future. We also believe Turkey's position as a reliable supply chain partner, proven once again during the pandemic, will boost Turkish-US cooperation in the defense industry as well. Turkish defense companies have successfully turned to the production of medical equipment during the pandemic. With regard to the F-35 program, the US government's own reports have shown that Turkey's suspension from the program has brought production risks for critical components of the F-35 aircraft, delaying the production timeline and increasing their cost. They should reconsider the decision after they listen to me. Turkish defense industry has continued to supply key parts of the aircraft despite the pandemic and our unjust suspension from the F-35 program. I wish to underline that Turkey is not just a customer of the F-35 program, but a partner. This is an important issue. Also, they accept what Mr. Trump before the media during one of those gatherings. The security of F-35 technology is just as vital for Turkey as it is for the United States. We are ready to address any U.S. concerns about the S-400 F-35 compatibility issue on a technical basis. Our main concern in this regard is to protect our population of 83 million against air and missile threats. Imagine our situation where we are. In fact, this issue has long background going back to the 1990s. We wanted to cooperate with our allies in this process in order to meet our requirements. However, despite all our efforts, we were unable to find a satisfactory solution with the Patriot or SAMP systems by working with the US and our European allies. In this context, the procurement of the S-400 emerged a matter of necessity, not a choice. Our offer regarding the establishment of a working group on this issue with the participation of NATO is still on the table. Please note this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Akar. Time is never enough when it comes to the Defense Minister, of course. Every topic deserves an hour and each time, nearly. So I do thank, on behalf of TRT World, for being here. It's nice in isolation to be part of this, and for your insightful answers.
And Minister, I also would like to thank you for your time. Recently, end of April, Turkey sent medical equipment during the pandemic to United States, and Turkish Ambassador Serdar Kılıç and State Department officials welcomed the supply. So it was a good partnership for two NATO allies. So we have done our best to incorporate the larger themes of regional developments and security concerns in our broader questions, as well as incorporating some audience questions into these as well. Unfortunately, we are coming up on our time limit. The minister has other priorities after this program. So we will have this full recording on our website for you to reference. We look forward to hosting you for the future event. And also we will be having Libya Foreign Minister, 75th President-elect, United Nations General Assembly, Volkan Bozkır, Turkish Health Minister. So we will have other important speakers like Minister Akar, and THO will continue to help the Turkey-US relationship, organizing panels and conferences. So again, Minister, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to having you for the future programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Çınar. It was really a great opportunity for me, and then to express the feelings, our facts, the situation, and you supported us, and then see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.